For years, we have been talking about the changes that we would need to see to heal the world and secure the happiness of future generations. But now we know, or need to know, that the time for talk alone is done, and the time to unite, to share, to serve, and to see the change that needs to be has come. As we awaken to the remembrance that we can heal the world, we also remember that it is something that can only be achieved together. For each one of us holds or hides inside our being an essential part of the plan for universal peace. And so we tender this humble plea that for the love of all things known and unknown, you might take a few short moments to hear with your heart the words which we speak. For it is our deepest desire, our life's only path and purpose, to learn how we may work collectively and thereby inspire as many people as possible to enter a new world of peace and harmony together.
So did you write this piece yourself?
Yeah, so this piece is called Dancing with Fireflies, and it's actually a piece that I wrote probably about 7 or 8 months ago. And it was right around the time that, we found out that we were expecting, and it was just kind of really inspired by that whole thing. So it's called Dancing with Fireflies, and I haven't, really completed it yet, but it's
Oh, I love it.
I think I've realized that there's nothing that, I or, probably any artist can create that's, more beautiful than life itself. I think in that sense we really are blessed. Women are blessed to be able to have that opportunity to create life. And I'm trying to do what I can to kind of capture where I'm at mentally, given the fact that I'm a father now. So I think the music has definitely got a little bit of a softer side in some senses. It's a little bit more playful, it's a little bit more reflective, but for the most part I feel like I'm doing the same thing, but just maybe with a slight different type of sweetness maybe.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do day in, day out musically. The only lens I live and breathe is my own lens, but I constantly try to put myself in the shoes of others and experience, the emotions and the thoughts that they may be feeling. Quite often I find myself, whether it's just walking around through the day or turning on the news or reading an article in the paper or meeting somebody for the first time, it's the sort of the emotional response that you get to, experiencing or even trying to experience what they're going through at that point in time. So I don't think that element of the music has gone away by any means. It's definitely become probably even more important. Having worked on a number of live performances over the last couple of years, having had the opportunity for open for the great Thalvin Singh, working in the interfaith community with people from different walks of life, that human element just keeps coming up over and over in my music because that's who I am.
Let me ask you this. Do you believe that artists like yourself can have a vital role to play in providing this kind of compassionate message for all mankind, regardless black, white, Muslim, non-Muslim?
Absolutely. I think that, now that you've asked me that question, I think that artists are the unofficial statesmen or spokespeople in many ways of just peace and humanity and compassion and empathy for others. If you look throughout history, artists, no matter where they're from, whether the oldest maestros like Beethoven or Bach, or if you look at the great Indian classical musicians or Persian or Middle Eastern artists, or people who are even doing contemporary forms of spoken word. All artists generally, from a musical standpoint, they tend to be very kind of conscious of what's going on around them. If you look at painters, if you look at visual artists, generally anybody who's taking in something from the outside and then putting back something with their own creative touch on it tends to be pretty sensitive to things around them. So I find quite often that artists end up becoming the voice of many people who don't like what they're seeing as it is right now. So I think that artists absolutely have a role to play, and we are in many ways unofficial spokespeople or statesmen for that.
So what is the space here?
It's called 187 Candles, and I'd actually written it on November 26, 2008. There was an attack by 10 gunmen in Bombay, or what's known now as Mumbai. And it was just an absolute ridiculous tragedy, complete senseless loss of life.
Rakesh Goenka, I'm here to remember senseless killing of Tayie.
My name is Roszak. I'm standing here for Benedette Navkar.
My name is I'm lighting the candle in the memory of Vijay Kadikar.
And we were at a candlelight vigil in Mississauga, and they were one by one, they were naming off all of the people who had been killed. And I just had a little sampler with me. I was recording, as they were reciting everybody's name. And then I wrote 187 candles, because many of the reports were talking about 187 deaths that came out of that particular attack. And 187 is also the police code, I guess, for murder.
We're here to honor the memory of Isa C. Suda. My name is Rapid Pressure, and I'm lighting the candle for Rehem wedding in the middle of Wisconsin. I'm lighting a candle in the memory of Georgia. I'm lighting the candle in the memory of Sunday and Yama. I'm here to honor the memory of Kamal Mokhani. My name is Sudhir Panda. I'm here to light a candle in memory of
The fact that anybody has to lose a life at all is tragic. I was really affected by this. I feel for the families whose sons actually went out there and did this in the first place. These guys were kids. They made some bad decisions, were brainwashed by the wrong people. But at the end of the day, they were kids. And they hurt families that were just like their own.
But the point is that your guys are doing something about it.
Yeah, and
for the next generation, for the next whoever going to be brainwashed. You are fighting those who are creating the tragic event for young people and so on.
Yeah, and education is the key there. I think education is it's really the only way. It's when people are they feel no sense of hope, no sense of future, that's when that desperation kicks in, and you're vulnerable and susceptible to people taking advantage of that. The people that make you do these things, they generally don't lose anything. It's everyone else that loses. It's not generally the religion that's to blame, it's the religious, it's the followers, and quite often I think it's the leaders within different groups that are to blame. somebody in a position of power has something to gain by going to war with somebody else. So I don't think religion is to blame. I think the core message of every religious tradition, whether it's Buddhism or Islam or Hinduism or Christianity, is peace and brotherhood and understanding.
This is great piece.
You know, the reception to that's been, you know, really, really warm. It's just unfortunate I even had to write that piece, but I was just really moved, and that was really the only way I could deal with it. That initiatives like Vital Voices are important and powerful opportunities for artists to create a sense of community. So if you look at history and you look at where there's been the real emergence of arts, where arts really flourished, there was community around it. Whether it was music or whether it was visual art or whether it was dance or performance. Where there's a community of artists, generally that society has kind of reached a place that's a little bit stable. And I think that by creating an opportunity and platform for artists to build that sense of community from around the world, it really gives you a good opportunity to get those critical views, that critical thinking coming forward. And what happens is if I'm doing something here in Toronto, there's another artist doing something somewhere else in the world, and you realize that what you're doing is actually quite similar, there's opportunities to kind of cross-pollinate ideas, you know, reach each other's audiences and take that message and amplify it. So being able to work with other artists and create a sense of community and bring their different skills and talents together is a very, very powerful thing. Anyways, I mean, it's on one hand, you know, death is tragic, but on the other, I've just been incredibly inspired, you know, more than ever, just, you know, with birth. And I think for anybody who doesn't really value human life, you need to see a birth happen, and you need to kind of understand what's really actually taking place, because it's so easy to take a life, and it's so difficult to create a life and give a life. And when, you know, someone has, you know, lovingly raised a son or daughter, you know, put their heart and soul into them for, you know, whether it's 5, 10, 50 years, and someone else just takes that away senselessly, that's to me what the real tragedy is. I don't think I've ever felt a greater sense of appreciation for life than I do right now.